Okay, so welcome to everyone who's with us right now or who will be seeing this on YouTube. This is the final installment of the Aperitif concerts for this year. We'll be back with a whole handful next year. But I am really, really thrilled to be able to close out these particular rounds. There have been two so far with this particular artist because I never ever get a chance to hear her in all of her glory for more than 5 minutes at a time. Um, as I say every week, it's really difficult for me to say we are so blessed, we are so fortunate because it's always true, but um, it's always true, but it just sounds repetitive after a while, but I can't think of what else to say because we are indeed blessed and we are indeed fortunate to have this Tesoro woman come and speak to us. I am not going to give you her bio. She is. I'll just tell you how I met her.
Yeah.
Um, I am sitting on another open mic called Put It Into Chat. And for those of you who have not seen Put It Into Chat, it is presided by and run over by Philip Curtis, who's an old student of mine, and John Chance Azevedo. And they kept picking on this chick named Nikki, and I couldn't figure out why they were giving her so much grief. Um, and so I was thinking, is she, just a bad poet? Is she just like, what's the deal here? So I'm sitting there and I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay. And so finally her turn comes and she opens up her mouth and gold falls out.
Oh.
At which point I sent both John and Philip a message saying, don't make me stop this open mic and take my shoe off. Leave my girl alone. I was so pleased to be able to have her join Tesoro. I will let her give you the official bio, but please welcome Nicole Hernandez McGuire. Nikki, sweetheart, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm here, I'm breathing.
You're doing it, you're doing it. Well, I am so glad that we had that opportunity to meet each other online. And even though I was indeed getting picked on, I think it was a wonderful thing because you definitely came to my rescue and I got that wonderful email and then wonderful call from you inviting me into this beautiful family that provides so much opportunity to artists. So I'm very grateful for that day. Um, so bio. Stacey, I don't like talking about myself all that much, but I'll just give a couple of facts. So I'm an educator. I am from Queens, New York. I teach community college students. I actually teach business, which is way different than what we're doing here tonight. But this is a passion of mine, and it's been a passion for a while. I used to write a lot and perform in my 20s, and then life happened. I was career oriented and going to school and trying to raise a family. And, poetry unfortunately just took, a step back in terms of priority. And 20 years later, after COVID, I found something to be missing in my life. There was a void, even though, I have a great job, great friends, great family. Thank God my health now, finally, after a long battle for that. Just something was still missing. And I realized that it was poetry. It was the ability to elicit an emotional response from people through my art. And I introduced myself back into poetry by attending some online open mics and just, became acquainted and reacquainted with people within the community. And it's just been really fabulous for my mental health, for my advocacy, how I teach, how I present myself. I think it's helped my skill in that way as well. And it's also been a great, I think, opportunity for my children to see me pursuing passion, pursuing something that I care very deeply about. So I love doing this. I love doing the open mics. I love that I was able to be in an invitational thanks to Tesoro this year. I'm glad that I'm featuring because of Tesoro this year, and that I'm able to claim a spot amongst amazing poets such as Stacy and such as my Tesoro sisters. So just so happy to be here, and so happy to be part of this family. Thank you.
Well, I was hoping for a little bit more, passion and enthusiasm in your answer, but we'll take that, Nicole. That's fine. So as I told you, softball questions here.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to start you with the question that I start everybody with, which is, and you answered it a little bit, but I'd like to hear you go a little bit further with it. Why poetry and why now? And you can
Mm,
interpret that any way you need to.
mm, mm. So, as I mentioned before, I used to write, and I used to perform at very small venues, little local bookstores, Barnes and Nobles, and little cafes. And it was something that I always enjoyed. But I feel now that if I didn't have poetry, I'd feel like I'm missing a limb. It's just something that brings out a different side of me, a side that I guess I've been afraid to show for a while. When you are a professor, and you are in that type of environment in academia, you have to present yourself a certain way. And particularly when you're in business, you can't really show that much of your creative side. And poetry allows me to explore that. And I know it's been suppressed for quite some time. And poetry is just a way of letting that out, into the world. And it's also just a way of me connecting with people. I mentioned to you before we started today that I have some social anxiety. I was joking around, but it's really true. I do have anxiety, with new people particularly, and being thrust into these situations where you have to, give a performance, show a piece of yourself to people who may like it and may hate it, right? Who are going to judge you one way or the other. Forcing yourself into this position, I think, is, at least for me, was really, really helpful in trying to overcome some of those like social anxiety kind of barriers to communication. Um, and so it's touched on almost every aspect of my life. Um, Poetry is just, I don't mean to be dramatic, but I think it saved me in a way from losing myself. And I hope that that this continues. I hope I get to learn more about myself and others through poetry. Um, but it's so, so important to me. I don't know how to express it any more than that. It's just,
I think that pretty much does it.
yeah.
Um, Recurring theme and for me recurring question that
Mm.
seems to come up is poetry more important now, do you think, than it was maybe 10, 15 years ago? Is it more needed? Is it more necessary?
Oh, I mean, yes, I would say yes. I think that after, again, COVID and being so disconnected from people, um, and then particularly for younger people who really didn't have the experience, like high schoolers and such, who didn't have that experience of being with people before COVID hit. Um, I find that social interactions between people can be so strained, can be so stressful. And poetry, again, is a bridge, right, for people to express maybe emotions that they wouldn't feel comfortable expressing any other way. And it builds community. I mean, I'm part of so many communities because of poetry, whether it's Nuyo or, like you said, put it in the chat, or the dumping grounds, Tesoro. I have people who come and check in on me, people who know now so much about me that they would never know if we just had these superficial type of relationships where, hi, I see you for dinner once in a while. They know my story, right, through my poetry. So I think it's so important now, in a world that feels slightly still disconnected, to have something that helps bridge that gap between people. Absolutely.
Okay. Talk to me about a woman's place,
Mm,
and I say that very deliberately, a
mm,
woman's place in this field.
mm. So I'm going to be honest, my experience, I have been spoiled. I have been very blessed. I've been very lucky to find myself, in communities where I felt very highly respected, by my male counterparts in poetry, but I know that not everyone has had that experience. And I've heard from friends and fellow poets that they've had quite the opposite. Um, we have so much going on as women in terms of autonomy, bodily autonomy being taken away from us, in terms of trying to fight for, fair and equal wages. We have so much going on, and it's a constant fight for us, for many groups, but for women in particular, I think, and poetry, I believe, gives us a platform where we can share those struggles and be heard. I think it's really important to hear our voices um, and to change, I think, the perspectives of what is a woman? What does it mean to be a woman? Do you have to be a mom? Do you have to be a wife? Do you have to do this or that? Between cultures, as time changes, how has that definition, right, evolved? And I think poetry lends itself to really exploring that. And I think we need to hear from women, right? Consistently, always. And poetry provides that opportunity.
So, as far as books, shows, open mics, what do you
Mm.
have coming up for us?
Oh Lord.
Yeah, I know say the very hard question until the very last. Come on.
So I did, for me, like, I consider myself a newbie because I'm just back on the scene. And I felt like I did so much this year, with the invitational, with a couple of features, having one of my poems accepted by Marissa Prada for the anthology that's coming up. All of these things are huge. Yeah, you did. All of these things are huge accomplishments for me. And I feel like I kind of want to take a breath, but I also don't want to lose momentum. So I think that for the new year, I'm going to really focus on writing, just producing. I'm going to try, and I guess you all will hold me accountable, to get a book out. Yeah, this year. I think I've had a lot of positive pressure about that. I think it's time to do that.
I love the phrase positive pressure.
Yes. Gentle nudges, firm but consistent nudges to write a book. So I think that that's going to be the goal for 2023. And I believe that Dumping Grounds is going to start having in-person open mics. And so I'm in discussions about performing at those. And I hope to do some more in-person things as well. I love the virtual. I love it, love it so much. But I also want to, I want a little bit of a hybrid kind of experience. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Okay. You touched very briefly on stories that people don't know about you or wouldn't have heard otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know poets who go their entire lives
Mm-hmm.
without really revealing any part of themselves that can't be seen, outwardly, can't be seen at first glance. Why is it so important to you to get those stories out that people might not know otherwise?
I'm the expert on me, and I've always felt that others have thought that, they know me and they can categorize me. I think I'm judged a lot by people. At least I'm told that when they first meet me. Oh, I didn't know that you were going to be so nice. I thought you were, I thought you were really mean. Like, I don't know if it's something about my face or my physical presence. You'll hear about that in one of my poems, how tall I am. I'm 6 feet tall. So I guess that could be, something that contributes to it. I want to tell my story. I want my story told the way I want it told. And I think that that's true for a lot of women, right? We are told by society, told by our partners, right? By cultural norms, how we're supposed to act, who we're supposed to be. And I think it's really important that I write my narrative. And particularly because I have 2 children as well, I want them to know how I became who I am, how to avoid some of the mistakes that I've made, if possible, that, why I am the way I am. And I think that poetry is giving me the chance to do that.
I could not ask for a better lead in
Oh, thank you.
to you doing your thing for the
All
next
right.
few minutes. So, before we get started, just let me tell the folks that are watching now and the folks that will see this later on YouTube that If you're interested in donating to our flow, then you can send donations to poetswind@hotmail.com. I will go ahead and put that in the chat section in a moment. 90% of everything that we make goes to the artist because artists need to get paid. And 10% comes back to Tesoro so we can keep the lights on. So, Nikki, darling, for the next about 27 minutes, it is all you.
Thank you
Do your
so much.
thing, girl.
Thank you. I just want to also, before I begin, thank everyone who came today and who was in the Zoom room with me, and everyone who will be watching later on YouTube. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for being here for me every step of the way. I appreciate all of you. Thank you. So I'm going to begin with the poem that Stacy first heard that wondrous evening during the open mic when I was being teased. This is the poem that I performed and that got us talking. It's called Mama's Got Shoes. Mama never had the type of feet that could fit into those dainty things, the ones you find in expensive catalogs and on the feet of ultra chic women parading down Columbus Avenue while balancing their lean bodies and full-figured shopping bags on tiny little stilts, head swirling in pointy-toed glory. No, Mama's got broad feet, gigantic toes and massive heels, could not contort to fit some pretty triangular shape. Those toes would rip right out of that feminine silk soft fabric and spill onto concrete, thinking they were home. Mama's shoes weren't sexy because they didn't give her pain. Mom saved pain for the good stuff, like being married for 30 years to a man who didn't love her, or hearing her daughter spit fire in her face like, "You have no class." Mom stood strong in imitation leather, shoes made in Malaysia instead of Italy, shoes that let her run, jump, climb, and kick my ass into submission when it had to be done. I never saw Mom wobble or catch a heel in a grate, though I did see her stomp a man who put his hand on me. Stretchy brown loafers from Payless kept those tens comfy enough to walk 3 girls to school each day and month and year. They sheltered those big rough feet that held her, held me, held us all up so resolutely. Just gonna take a sip of water.
You do that while I grab a handkerchief because that poem still makes me cry.
This one is untitled. My dad was a canvas, painted with the colors of his barrio. Crimson from the lips of the many girls he pursued, gray from the concrete streets that grounded him, that tempted him, violet from the flush around his eye when he didn't quite land his left hook, but someone else did. Brown from the little bags of powdered cheap escape littering the clubs he so frequently played. He was a sculpture, forged from the steel of the rails leading to 116, tall, twisted, and not at all flexible, solid enough, however, to encage and protect a thing of beauty. My dad was a song, a deep and penetrating sound of slamming hand to hide, a steady rhythm one is forced to follow that sometimes overwhelms the melody, bars and measures, notes kept in strict time. My next is called Big Red. And this poem, some of you here have heard it before. I started this poem 20 years ago and finished it this year. Man, we were tight, walking up and down our block in boom boom shorts, cheeks hanging out, bouncing up and down in unison with the bass line of some reggae song screaming out the open doors of Franco's gray hoopty. I tucked my tiny tits in a tight red tube top and left nothing but nipple to the imagination. Your thick brown hair covered your shoulders, but the rest of you was up for grabs. That beautiful dark Latina skin, firm and glowing. Youth and sex was our perfume, and damn, did those boys smell it. fumbling behind us and following our scent with their blue balls and sweaty palms, begging for a peek, feel, taste. Please, 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 just let me put it in. We loved those boys loving us because it happened overnight. We went from pink to red, and they never expected it. I grew from a mouthful of silver metal to big white smiles behind plump red lips, lips that softly shaped the names of the boys who had pity when I was just a beanpole, green and fruitless. Back when you were just the flat-chested sidekick, they never got to hear you whisper their names, hot and wet against their scrawny necks, because you left that for the bigger boys, the ones with cars and jobs and expensive cologne, the ones that said I love you when you used your lips just right. 15 is young to learn that sex is power, to reign over a block of teenage decadence among stereos blaring until 3 a.m., boys leaning on cars with girls between their baggy jeaned legs, the smell of pot and sweat and excitement permeating every brick of every 3-family house surrounding us. But we handled our supremacy pretty well. When we got burning eyes from the 30-something wives of the 30-something guys who twisted their necks to watch our naked legs walk by, we just laughed and swung our newly blossomed hips a little harder because we weren't ever those kind of girls. When the older ladies called us sluts, we licked our wounds provocatively and giggled about how dirty they must have been when they were our age. When the other girls stepped to our faces, anger and insecurity dripping from their oversized pores, we showed them that pretty girls could kick ass, because pretty girls could be pretty ugly sometimes. And when the younger girls started copying our style, we sat them down on the cool stone stoops and told them to play, to jump and kick and shout and laugh, to try to be oblivious to the scrutiny that the boys may apply to their knobby maroon scabbed knees and mosquito bite-sized breasts, because we remembered what it felt like to be the girls with no sex, the girls with no power, the innocent ones that became sitting ducks, victims of some pubescent boy's hurtful remarks. We wanted those girls to be themselves just a little bit longer, to be loose and free and wobbly and loud, to be proud of their awkwardness. Because even though we got to be tight, we knew the whole time, didn't we, that it was coming to an end, and that eventually someone would see clear through our big red front, stare straight into our red-stained innocence, saying, "Shit, I had no idea," right before they took it away. Take another step. My next piece is brand new. I think I've only read this during a workshop when I was actually working on it. And it's called Duplicitous. My identity is spiced with determined variety, boiled in pots of stainless steel and simmered in un caldero. My youth fed by days of Kraft macaroni and cheese and nights of silently scraped bagao, a diet for the poor and multicultural. I eat both at my lonely kitchen table. My identity is stitched in scars of red, white, and blue, cloth spun in China by machines with programmable patterns that change United States to Puerto Rico with the press of a button. 50 stars, then one. I buy both flags on Amazon and hang them out my window. My identity is recorded on cassettes and LPs. My introduction to music at my father's dominating hand, pounding rhythms onto skin and brow, while I secretly chose chords that strike defiance. His old school salsa and mambo, my tattooed women singing sex and anger, both worlds dominate my playlists. Both still make me dance. My identity is printed in Times New Roman, proper English grammar, getting paid by classmates at NYU who were duplicitous too, who initially accepted me until, that is, I showed my colors. I passed as white, but they passed those papers off as their own, while I struggled to keep up in conversation con mis compañeras. Two languages dance on one forked tongue. I speak both and hope they can understand me. I hope they understand. My next one is also brand new. And it's called Hazel. I recall the scene, though it hasn't happened yet. Our embrace, after a long fast, I try to appear cool, aloof to the stirrings in my core, but my goosebumps betray me as you swipe your hand across my skin and tell me I should come inside. I try to drown out the image of her standing there that evening. It felt like a 90s teen drama, the heartache of the heroine being snubbed for the prettier, more popular girl. I try to stifle the image of you kissing her, choosing her repeatedly through my long winter. And now that I've thawed, you have plucked me once again. You will kiss me hard, rip off my petals to create a salve to treat your wounds, wounds she inflicted and let fester. And she only wants you when you're healed. I am fighting to ground myself, to assess the moment, the past, the future, to get my bearings. And you put your hands on my waist while I'm unsteady. You pull me close, pull me in. I melt like fine threads of cotton candy in your hands, my cheeks rosy from heat, from shame. And I follow you in this time instead of walking away. I regret this moment, though it hasn't happened yet, when I once again will try to fix you, and I will be left disassembled. This time, parts missing, never the same again.
I love that. That's absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This one is called I Forgot. It's been quite a while, and so I forgot who I was. In a 10-year fog, surrounded by diapers and deadlines, bills and grocery lists, and calendars tattooed with all the upcoming events and gatherings of my growing family. My own name suspiciously absent in those crowded squares. I was the administrator, the facilitator, the wizard behind the curtain who made life magical for everyone else, while I quietly withered. Hands losing strength so that I could not beat the drum as vibrantly, eyes losing the shine that I was once notorious for, and my voice, oh, my voice, used in PTA meetings and during work conflicts, an instrument to advocate for others, but I didn't speak up for me, for my desires, my dreams, my fantasies and needs, my fears and my regrets, all I longed for and longed to forget. My body, my mind, my spirit, and all of my time became the property of others because I forgot that I have a heart, and that heart produced a spark that caught the rest of me on fire, flames shooting from eyes, from mouth, from the fingers that write these words to remember that I am someone. I am more than your cheerleader, your protector, your support. I love being all those things, but I am someone else too. A woman who wants to make more mistakes, to feel tears stream down my cheeks from pain, from pleasure, from the exhilarating surprise of recalling who I am and who I still can be. I forgot, but I am starting to remember me. The next one is called A Poet's PSA. When a poet writes about you, don't get too excited. Don't begin to think that you are special or that your actions or inaction has somehow changed the writer's worldview, that your effects on this person are permanent or even long-lasting. See, I've written poems about first kisses, which were really nice, but a poem isn't really a poem when we call something really nice, now is it? So instead, it was a flush of heat, an exchanging of spirits, a moment that made me quiver. And I've written poems about my father, turning him from terror to titan, discussing the music, the culture, the character he instilled in me, but using the very medium I cherish for getting me to break silences, to somehow muffle and modify the most troubling memories of him, words concealing bruises. See, writing a poem is akin to memories filtered through prism, words shining through in yellow, indigo, and green, with the slightest movement, the smallest shift in perception and memory making them magenta. orange, red. We poets analyze, dramatize, metamorphosize, and though rarely, tell little white lies because we need some way to process these feelings. The constant stream of ideas, the nagging regrets, the merciless well of hope in order to speak about what was, what is, what can be, what should have never been. We poets turn shadows and silhouettes into solids. We watch, sometimes helplessly, our wishes and fears rise like vapor from our treasonous pores and settle onto a page in front of us. Our intentions are to heal, not harm, and once in a while, well, you may be referenced, maybe adoringly, perhaps bitterly, but don't take it to heart. We are a weird bunch, poets, committed to telling our truths, but willing sometimes to reframe them as necessary, eager to recount in extremely uncomfortable and violently honest detail each minute of our deepest traumas, reopen itchy, tight scars, but at other times recount small, somewhat insignificant moments with heart-shaped pupils and feather-light fingers, turning the tiniest tick of the clock into some unforgettable and journey-changing moment. So please, don't take it too personally when you're the subject of a poem. Forgive us if we embellished. Tell us if we got it all wrong, but understand that that conversation will probably end up in a poem too. Feel what you gotta feel, but forget it quickly, because as monumental as our moment may have been in one stanza, we poets must always focus on the next. This one is brand new as well, and it's called At Santa Marta's Feet. I lit a candle to torch your memory. I called on Santa Marta because she dominated snakes and begged her for strength so that I could forget you. I said the prayers while anointing the wax, the skin. A warm, enveloping scent of musk dropped delicately in the votive. Yours was a name on brown paper, a wish, a petition. At first it worked. I walked around with just the smoke of you lingering in my nostrils, in the thin vessels of my heart, a once manageable flame, and all flames share the promise of burning out one day. But you're back again. I thought I'd snuffed you out. There is something persistent about your nothing. It's ash and it's gray, not pure enough, not strong enough to be its own color, yet it stains my walls. I fear it may be permanent, and so I get my oil, my prayer book ready, my own attempt to corral the snakes once more, to begin the ritual again. This is a new one as well, and it's called Wild One. I was called the wild one, the gifted one, the one with an opinion, fresca, the one who questioned everything and fought for fairness against adults who equated silence with respect, submission as reverence. I got in trouble on many an occasion for schoolyard fights and wearing makeup to class, for making jokes not meant for kids about subjects I should not have been privy to, for laughing too loud and too long. I was too everything for the grown-ups around me. Even my physical presence was excessive for many, too tall for the hand-me-downs left at our door, the clothes that hugged average-sized legs before mine, they left my ankles uncovered. My skin was not brown enough for my father's side, my nose was not thin and pointed enough for my mom's. Literally every part of me was an act of defiance. I wore black lipstick and silver rings through my nose when I went to school with the hip-hop heads, huge heeled boots that lifted me from 5'10" to 6'1", so that I stood jutting out of any crowd. And when my friends began to develop, curvy flesh that they lifted with painful contraptions, cups spilling above low button tops, I came to school braless. Femininity small but unbridled, nipples poking through cheap fabric, pointing accusations to anyone who stared. Some will say it was because I was a middle child, sandwiched between the hopeful prodigy of my parents and their innocent baby. We middle children often feel extra, unintended, and we learn to find ways to stand out, like acting out and making bad choices. But I don't think it was that, because I'm still considered a wild one, told to calm down many times when standing up for myself in a room full of suits and IT guys, told I was crazy when voicing valid concerns, concerns that left unattended became real problems, and I had no problem saying I told you so, because wild ones don't care about etiquette, especially in the face of being ignored. And I'm still an odd one, for getting back into poetry after 20 years, going out and making a brand new life for myself at a time when I'm expected to sit home and complain about how tired I am and how much weight I've gained. At a time when I'm supposed to want to shrink, I have chosen to gain muscle, to hit the gym hard and go out dancing into the night, posting bikini-clad pictures on Insta and steeling myself for the negativity, the judgments that somehow never come. Because I've surrounded myself with fellow wild ones, guys that cook and guys that cry, women who teach business, women who break dance, parents who have chosen to break painful cycles and give their kids the stability they did not have, and people who have decided to remain childless, secure in a legacy of their actions as opposed to their DNA. Yes, we are the wild ones, the ones who no longer take comfort in the mundane, who find gratification in the discomfort of being someone different and trying something new, the ones who to themselves remain true. And this is going to be my last one. It's also brand new. And it's called A Love Story Version 2. I vow to stop breaking my own heart as I fall in love with myself. I'm such a hard person to get along with, and so I promise to set boundaries and not cross them. Take myself on dates to keep the magic alive. I commit to this relationship and keeping it healthy. Taking advice from therapists and friends because we are all married to ourselves. And the divorce rate is about 50%. So I need to learn to live with my faults, like leaving half-empty glasses and mugs on the tops of dressers to topple over when I look for something at night, not closing drawers completely and later bumping into them. I have little maps of blue-green swirls marking where the corners meet my hips. I have to get used to this, to falling asleep with the lights on. I vow to appreciate myself, pick up after myself, leave myself sweet messages to say what I actually mean, make my favorite meal once a week. I promise not to nag as much, to not press an issue. When all I need is a little time and quiet, I will give myself space and use kind words and try understanding my point of view. There's so much to do. See, I understand relationships are hard work, and I come into this one with trauma and regret, resentment. There is no one harsher on me than me. But if I'm going to make this work, enjoy the time I have with me, become fond of me, grow old with me, I need to put in the effort I have wasted on so many guys and so many tries before me. I am who I wake up to in the morning, who I depend on for comfort in the middle of the night. When the past creeps up from under the bed to pull me under, it's me who holds on tight. And I have to remember not to go to bed angry. I'm finally ready for this fight, this journey with me, for me. I vow to try my best and to treat me how I would like to be treated, to make myself a priority, pack myself healthy lunches garnished with little love notes to brighten my day. I will brighten my days and fall madly in love with me. And that's it. Am I good for time? I hope I
Darling, you are more than good for time. As a matter of fact, if you would care to grace us with one more, we can do that. I mean, I personally would like for you to go on for at least another hour and a half.
You're so sweet. Thank you.
Do you have one
Um,
more for us?
I'm gonna look really quick to see. I probably do. Order. I should have had one just in case.
No, it's
Um,
it's fine. Take your time. While she's doing that, again, please remember that if you'd like to donate to the flow, go to poetswind@hotmail.com. I'll put it in the chat. 90% goes to the artist, and this is PayPal, by the way. 90% goes to the artist, 10% comes back to Tesoro.
Okay, I'll do one of my sad ex-boyfriend poems. This one's called Patience. It's been a year since I first noticed, really observed you, paid attention to the inflection in your voice, the way your eyes shine at certain moments. I still need to catch my breath just a little when I see it, when I'm close enough to notice my own reflection staring back at me. It's been a year since I awakened from a soft, safe slumber, ventured out into the world with new hopes and desires, purposely taking roads where we would cross paths. I wanted you in my path. I wanted you. It's been a year, a long-winded practice in self-control and deprivation, in building anticipation for a moment that never happens. A year with only a few days of satisfaction, of us being on the same page, the opportunity blossoming like a most well-endowed flower that bursts open in beautiful perfumed glory, only to die a few days later. It's been a year, and I can't seem to shake you. Though the flame is slowly flickering out, hopes withering in the absence of your touch, it's been too many days, and I wonder how many more it'll take. It's been a year. That's it.
Ladies and gentlemen, open up your mics and throw this lady some roses. Nicole, that was absolutely breathtaking. Loved every
Great
minute of
job,
that and all
Nicole.
the new pieces. Thank you for that.
Yes, yes. I had to bring some new stuff for my Chisora people.
Hey, Tesoro in the house. Um, Again, that was past incandescent. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for that. Drink some water, babe.
I will, I'm dying. Thank you.
So, um, what's going to happen next, as I say, again, thank you so much to Nicole Hernandez McGuire. Y'all open up your mics. Give it up for this lady one more time, because that was just beyond anything anybody could have wanted. There you go. Open up your mics, y'all. Let her hear it.
Good job, Nicole. Per
So,
usual, Nikki.
within about, I don't know, 3 minutes, Tesoro is going to debut its newest open mic, which is a general open mic. Everybody is welcome. This is called Pen and Sword. So I'm going to, we're going to switch on over there. It is the same, even though I have to close this room down, it is the same link. So you can just come right on back. And that will be run by our Tesoro in New York, Felicia Villanueva. We are being unbelievably graced by our connection from South Africa. Kimberly Anderson is going to open up the debut of Pen and Sword. I cannot tell you how excited I am for this. In the meantime, Nicole, darling, thank you so much. It's been fantastic. I say this every week. I am through messing with people's time zones, okay? So wherever you are in the world, have an absolutely fantastic season of whatever time of day it is for you. Have an absolutely terrific weekend. And Tesoro, Aperitif concerts, the interviews, we'll see you next year. A biento.